Welcome to the Water Trough, where we can't make you drink, but we will make you think. My name is Ed Drozda, the Small Business Doctor, and I'm really excited you chose to join me here as we discuss topics that are important for small business folks just like you. If you're looking for ideas, inspiration, and possibility, you've come to the right place. Join us as we take steps to help you create the healthy business that you've always wanted. Welcome back to the Water Trough. This is Ed Drozda, the Small Business Doctor, and today I'm joined by Ben Speich. Ben is a fractional COO and an EOS integrator who's based in Austin, Texas. He works with founder-led businesses, typically in that 5 to 50 employee range, where growth has outpaced the operational infrastructure which holds it together. His work sits at the intersection of leadership, structure, team accountability, and the systems that make execution actually happen. He's not an advisor who hands you a deck and leaves. He builds the operating model and he runs it alongside of you. Ben, welcome.
Hey, good to be here.
It's nice to see you, Ben. How are things in Texas today?
They're pretty good. We got good weather going on, which is always nice to get into the springtime. Looking forward to Easter weekend and some relaxing time soon.
Sounds like a great plan. Well, let's jump into what brought you to your current role as a fractional COO. I understand you left an executive role. Can you tell us about that transition?
Yeah, I had realized before even going into that role, I've been really good at working myself out of a job, which I think people don't see as a good thing. What I mean by that is I'm going to go on vacation and not be bothered. You know what I mean? I don't need that pat on the back to come back to work and go, everything's on fire when you're not here. I enjoy when things just work and they go, hey, we'll come back. And then I just go right back into my day. I think that's seen, especially transitioning from pre-COVID times when you were in person to remote times. I think that was a newer kind of realization for people. Like they had to be needed. And if they weren't there, it would fall apart. That was their job security. So coming into even the previous 2-3 jobs that I had, I started realizing I'm able to make stuff happen and make stuff work without me being around and being in every meeting. And that's a good thing. So I started to move companies, and at each one came in, found a little bit of the what's working, what's not working, set it up, and then go, okay, what do you guys want to do now? What's the next thing? And the full-time roles that I did that with, not necessarily planned, but we came to the realization of, oh, if you did all that, I guess I don't need you. So then I was like, what if that was the point? What if that's just what I started with in the interview? I'm going to build something where you don't need me, and then I'm going to leave. That's how I got into this. And that's the fractional part of fractional. I don't plan on being with one company forever. I plan on handling multiple companies a couple hours a week, and then I'm able to leave when they're up on their own and can run it themselves.
Would you say that the outcome was the result of that circumstance, or it was what you were looking for all along? Did you actually help it along, or did you decide after the fact, well, that sounds like that's where I belong?
I think it was a realization of that's what I am doing. The more I did it before, it was very much on finding projects to do and then that being done and then going on to the next project. At my company where I started my professional career, let's say, I created every role that I got promoted into, meaning the role didn't exist before I had it, because I just kept doing things and making things better. And along the way was like, hey, no one's doing this now. Do you mind if I do it? And then, yeah, sure, new role. And there we go. So I think it's always what I've been doing, but I didn't realize it until farther along. Then post-COVID, the world changed a little bit, and this word fractional started getting thrown around. And I think people were familiar with CFOs. I think they've been doing it for a long time in the CFO space. I
Mhm.
think the CMO, the marketing side, people understood you could come in and build the marketing plan and then leave, and a marketing person can execute it. In the fractional sales manager stuff, I think it started with workshops and consulting, and then it got into I'm hiring an entire team. So can I bring somebody on just temporarily? But it hadn't really been done in operations, or at least popularized until post COVID.
What do you suppose gave rise to the slow development of the fractional COO? The fractional CFO goes back as long as I can remember. I knew people back in the 90s, in the 80s for that matter, that were essentially doing the same thing. So why did the fractional COO take so long to come around?
I don't know exactly. I do feel though it was as people, and mainly CEOs, I would say founders in the medium to small business space, I think a lot of the assumptions was what we're doing is unique and there's no way an outside person can really do it. Where they started realizing, okay, CFO is numbers, right? You don't really have unique numbers. Maybe you have a little bit of stuff that's funky, but for the most part, you can analyze numbers and that's pretty much written. Then I think there's different sales strategies, and that's where you can bring in specialized consultants if you're doing certain styles of sales. But I think everybody had this assumption that the way I operate is unique. Our special sauce is all this internal stuff. I think it took a while for people to realize that there is a repeatable system that multiple businesses can run on and have success on that in a standardized fashion. I still find resistance to it. That's one of probably the biggest objectives I hear. You don't know our industry. And I usually respond with, I don't want to. I will. I'll learn it. I'm a very smart person. I've proven that through what I've done. But I think the benefit of fractional consultants and coaches is you have experience from many different places to bring in. So I think people had that. You don't know my business, so you can't come in and tell me how it works. And now it's starting to be, hey, since you don't know my business, can you come in and tell me what's broken? And then we rebuild it from there. It's a bit of a mind shift that I took. I just think took time. And I think COVID, as weird as it was, I think it was a big part of that because it forced everybody to be remote. It wasn't you're in the office, you're having success. It was actually, okay, what are you doing? That was, I think, the right shift that it needed.
I understand the piece about industry neutrality, if you will.
Yeah.
I look at it the same way. You mentioned coaches, and as a business coach, I often have people say to me, what industry do you work with? And as you have said,
Mhm.
I don't have an industry that I work with because I come in at a fundamental space, as do you. In your case, it's a bit more refined than mine. It was rather fortunate for you to find this that fit you. In his last job, you're going like, duh.
Mhm.
You even said, all this time, have I been trying to work myself out of a job? Boy, what was that like? That sounds like a light bulb moment.
It was, and it was fun to do. I found myself in this transition between roles, and I had a pretty nice network of people. So I messaged all the people and I said, hey, I don't know exactly what I'm doing next, but I got a little bit of time to figure it out. This is kind of what I'm looking for. And I had originally been saying I want to find another full-time job. And somebody messaged me and said, hey, I have a couple people who are doing this fractional thing. Do you want to talk to them? And I said, sure. I don't know exactly what that is, but why not? I was thinking more of, okay, if they're fractional helping somebody and then they go, you now need a full-time person, that I would be one person that's like, heads up, I'm looking for a job. But the more people I spoke to, the more I was like, this sounds fun. This sounds like a good time. The community in the fractional space has been absolutely amazing. Everybody's been very open. Here's my playbooks and here's how to do it and stuff like this. It's been a great community to be a part of. There are definitely people who are trying to make money off of fractionals and get you to sign up for their thing and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's very welcoming community to say, here's how I do it. You're welcome to repeat it and do it where you want to do it. It is a blue ocean. There is plenty of fish in the sea who need fractional help. There is no shortage. And I can count on one hand the number of fractional COOs I know in Austin, Texas. It's not flooded by any means, but it is now, I think, more so a starting to realize it's a personality fit with who you're working with, more so than I'm in the mood for, or I think I'm ready for a fractional. They're more understanding that it's not an industry thing. It's more of a personality connection. That shift is happening. It's definitely happening. It's a fun group. And that's what got me hooked, meeting all these people and going, yeah, you're right. This would be a cool thing to do. So a lot of fun.
Let's take a step back here for a moment. In the beginning, I introduced you as a fractional COO and an EOS integrator. And I realized I never took the time to really get into the definition of those two terms. So why don't we go there before we continue on?
Yeah. It's a really fun way to introduce myself when I do networking is to say I'm a fractional COO. Everybody gets a kind of a look on their face and goes, okay. Then I go, yeah, exactly. Now let me keep going. It's not the best taught way to introduce yourself, but it's a way to do it. Fractional meaning I work with multiple businesses at one time. During the week, it's about 5 to 10 hours per company. And that can be broken up however you want. Some companies, I'll do very heavy Mondays and then light the rest of the week. Some of them, it's all sprinkled in, but my calendar just gets filled up with different meetings and I jump from one to the next. Very much a testament to how organized and structured I am in all of my things is that I'm able to jump from thing to thing. And then that usually goes every week. The other side of fractional is I also don't want it to be forever. It's usually some sort of project based or timelined thing, generally 6 to 12 months. So there's transition periods in there and then periods of training where I walk myself out as well. That's the fractional piece of it all. I think it's also a little bit misunderstood. I just did a blog article about it. The difference between coaching, consulting, and fractional. Those are three levels of interactions that we have, right? Coaching, very much of a one-on-one situation, guiding things, listening, business therapist in a way. I'm sure that you run into that. I've had a business coach and it's, here's my issues I'm dealing with this week. And they give you new perspective on things. Great relationships. I love coaches. Then you get into your consultant side, and those are typically ones I find that are, here's the thing that I do. Here's the template that I use. Maybe they meet with you a couple times a week as a training, but they're not in it with you. They're not next to you going, okay, now let's start actually building it and seeing how it executes, even potentially getting in front of customers with you and things like this. Whereas fractional, I feel like I'm very much inside businesses doing things. I'm building stuff. I'm working with their client issues. I'm working with different things to really improve the operational flow of it. But I'm there with them doing it so I can experience the hiccups and problems, not just sending templates and moving on.
So then, what is an EOS integrator?
That's the next difference, the COO versus the integrator piece. COO is like more of the broader sense of operations. It can lean in any direction of the company. The EOS integrator, EOS is entrepreneurial operating system. It's a book, or it comes from a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. He wrote that, and it's basically a framework for structuring your business. He will probably say this if you ask him, but it is nothing new and revolutionary. It's just all of the things in one place. It's a very easy step-by-step playbook. It's very much a manual for how to do it. So it reads in a weekend. You need this, you need this, you need this, and you fill in this massive checkbox of all of the stuff that you need, but you then have to apply it. The integrator is the person who's taking the ideas from the visionary, from the CEO typically, and filtering them into, do these new ideas support our current objectives? And if they do, let's convert and systemize them so that everybody can execute on it. If they don't, we need to filter or triage these into future thinking or future review. The integrator is that person. And doing fractional integrator is a very specific part of COO with a different set of hours than a fractional COO. There's different pieces, but in the EOS community, fractional integrator is how I would say what I do. And if I'm not in that community, I'll say fractional COO.
Thanks, Ben. I really appreciate that further explanation of the fractional and the EOS integrator. So let's go back to where we left off. You were talking about the importance of personality in this relationship. Elaborate on that a bit.
Yeah, I think it's an overlooked aspect of business. There's the hire somebody that you would have a beer with kind of mentality. And there's some truth to that, but I think it's just an outdated way of saying it. I think there is a yin and the yang relationship between a CEO and a COO, a visionary and an integrator, the driver of the ideas of the company versus the executor of those ideas in the company. There has to be a relationship there, and it has to be extremely healthy, and it has to be built on trust, and it has to be something where you can both be vulnerable with each other. I think there's a few of those things that if you don't have, it's going to be a rough relationship. It very much is like a marriage. I joke all the time that when I get into a contract with a client, I want my wife to be jealous. I want her to be like, oh my God, stop talking about whoever it is, because that's how close I need to be aligned with this person so that when I'm in the room and they're not there, I'm able to bring and say the things that they would say, and vice versa. I have to trust that when I'm not in the room, they're going to go, you need to talk to Ben about that. For a CEO, that's a very difficult thing to say, especially as the founder of a small business, to say, that's not me who's supposed to solve that. That's a scary feeling for them. That's where I think personality is so important. It's radical candor that you need to have with somebody to say, hey, that's mine. You need to give me that. We have to be on that same wavelength. So I think personality is an undervalued skill or attribute when you're picking a second in command.
I agree with you 100%, maybe 200%. I think that the importance of personality is not recognized in business in general. And I believe that those personalities foster trust, and the trust opens possibility.
Yeah.
But I think in some cases, in some circles, it's seen as too weak. It lacks the business macho, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
That's unfortunate, in my opinion, because these are things that level the playing field and make things more comfortable to do. You pointed out a really important thing. The founder, the owner, the big boss, if you will, has a lot of ownership and ego attached to their title, to their person. Some are neutral about the ego part, but nonetheless, this is their baby.
Right.
It's important to acknowledge that this does exist. I feel strongly about this sort of thing. You talk about personality and the need to have an understanding. I'm sensing humility, responsibility, and clarity. What role do they play in you being a, quote, outsider? Fitting in? What would be considered a potentially awkward position for you?
Humility, it's one I enjoy being able to play the ignorant card in meetings with my client. Now, we can say it's being humble, because I'm not going to walk in there and act like I know what everything is going on. I'm not going to say, no, I've already done this before. Just follow me and do what I say. But going in there with an ignorant sense of, how does this work? How do you guys do it? Why do you do it that way? I think the ignorance gives you a very inquisitive ability. If you're walking in there like you're the macho hot stud, you're not going to be able to learn about that client because there's going to be no questions from you. You're just going to be, here's what you need to do, follow my orders, that kind of thing. And so I believe you have to be humble to be able to do that. I think they're one and the same. And I think it's very nice when you're conversating with people, when you can tell the difference between a humble person and a not humble person, because they're listening to the things that you're saying and they're thinking about those things instead of just waiting to speak again. They're thinking about the things that are coming out of your mouth. There's definite ties to humility in there. So I think that has to happen very quickly, almost first in all of this kind of thing. And I think through that humility and that comfortable ignorance is clarity in what is needed, clarity in where the company is lacking, clarity in where there's conflict, clarity in the disconnect between a CEO's vision or a founder's vision and the team's execution. I don't think you can get clarity if you're not listening and not asking questions and just throwing out, here's how you should do it. Those two things are extremely related and important. And those two things together will give people accountability and they will give people the responsibility. That will come if you have clarity on what you're supposed to deliver. And that's why I really push those things. I talk about them probably way too much, but they're amazing pieces to push forward.
Do you use your own experiences then
Yeah.
with your clients? I surmise that you are a humble person, not just for the sake of being able to discern people, but that you are a humble person. And so when you're dealing with a humble person, they're more inclined to tell you things, more things than they might otherwise want to tell you. Now, we both know you need that if you're going to be effective, right? If there's not the ability to get that information, or as you suggested, clarity, you're going to be of no value to them. But when you're engaged, once you've made this entree and now they know who you are and they've begun to develop this sense of trust, do you find yourself engaging in conversations from your own experience that are relevant to what's going on to illuminate and to help further their development?
Yeah, it's a lot of storytelling. It's like, okay, here's the situation that I was in before. Not everybody reacts to those the same way. Sometimes it is very much a real world storytelling, like in scenario ways, like, okay, this is how I think it would work right now, versus let me reflect back a minute and explain something that happened to me. And then let's see if we can tie that into being relevant today. Having a lot of that stuff in your wheelhouse is amazing. I do a lot of blogging, posting, and writing. So I have lists and lists and lists of all of these different nuances and stories and things that I've developed. This is why journaling and all of that is so important. You have these things to reference and fall back on. Real world examples are always the best. So I do a lot of that stuff. My wife will also say that I do a lot of idioms that people don't know about anymore. I apologize to people when I say I have to get up on my soapbox and then realize I'm talking to a bunch of 20-year-old. And I'm like, for those of you who don't know what a soapbox means, so things like that. But I do really enjoy the art of storytelling rather than instruction.
Would think that when you're in a situation such as yours, that really does help to further build trust and to bring solution by virtue of experience.
Absolutely. Even if it's not direct, I think people misunderstand that. And I mean, misunderstand as in I'm too young or not experienced enough or something to be able to do that. And I'm like, anybody who's lived on this earth for any amount of time has had very similar experiences. Maybe it's not, oh, I lost the business. Not everybody's done that, but you have lost things and you do understand failure, finding a lesson, and then retrying and succeeding. There's so many things that I think we all experience, regardless of who we are and regardless of age. And when somebody can see and connect those dots, that ability to see and connect those dots is not an age requirement. You don't have to hit 40 and then go, oh, now I can start giving advice. I think there's this misconception with that. So if there are people out there listening or whatever that just can get things, and it's hard to say what it is, but when you get something, you can start applying that and sharing that get to other people in a very similar way. That eventually can turn into coaching or consulting or fractional operations because you've gotten that thing that you can share it with the world. So I do find there's younger people who are like, how do you get into this? And I'm like, you're probably already there. The fact that you're asking, you're probably already along your way. So I don't think it has anything to do with age. I think there's a maturity, if anything else, to it. It's an interesting quirk that I hope some people can start to see that path for themselves.
You found yourself getting things done and somewhat impatiently waiting. Now, what do I do? That was your experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Very early on, somebody had joked, I wish I could remember her name. She had joked, idle hands are the devil's work. Since then, when I was working with her, she would always ping me, what are you working on now? And if I didn't have anything, she would send me to somebody else to see if this person has anything, because she saw that early on. I was able to do that. It wasn't a supervisor or anything like that. It was just another coworker who realized I love to do stuff. I think that's when I started realizing that it didn't really matter if I was doing stuff for a colleague or doing it for the CEO. I just liked to do stuff. And it was less about who it was for and getting over that intimidation factor and stuff like that as a young person, and just saying, well, hey, how about I just do the thing? And that's what I'll worry about. I won't worry about the rest of it. And that started to build confidence of itself. It was a good time to realize that stuff. And it's fun to see how it's evolved into an actual career.
That's great. You're making a case for the fact that there's so many opportunities out there for self-employment, and age is not a factor. There's a lot of different things to do at any age.
Oh, there's countless, especially now the age that we're in. It's getting easier and easier to solve problems faster, or at least attempt to solve the problem faster, because the first try is not always the one that's going to fix it, but you can iterate on it so much quicker now. Why wait for your career or the age or that next promotion or whatever? Just start doing it and don't worry about all the rest of the stuff. Let's just solve the problem and then keep moving. So yeah, it's a fun time to be doing what I'm doing in the AI world and all of that stuff. It's exciting years figuring out what I'm supposed to be doing with myself.
As we all must do. That's great. So Ben, our time has come to an end. Before we go, is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
There was some quote that I saw, I think it was Gary V, where people were whining, I'm already 40 or I'm already 50 or I should have done this last week. So what? Do it now. It's the best time to plant a tree. There's 2 times to do it, 50 years ago and today. Do it scared, do it tired, do it unsure how it's going to turn out, do it unprepared, but do it and then learn from it as quickly as you can and try again. Joke with my wife because she's like, how do you know how to do this? I'm like, I just click on stuff and see what happens. And I'm really good at learning, adapting, and continuing on. So yeah, if I can leave anything, I'll leave with that.
Great advice. Thank you so much for that. Well, Ben, I want to thank you for being here today. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. I would love to do this again. Hit me up when we can do session 2.
Sounds like a plan. Folks, this is Ed Drozda, the small business doctor, and here at the Water Trough. As always, I want to wish you a healthy business. And as Ben has told us, If you're hesitating about something, why not just go out and give it a go? Thanks, folks.